Unity of Bellevue. Our reading today is from our new book of the month, Everyday Spiritual Practice, Simple Pathways for Enriching Your Life. This is a series of essays regarding spiritual practice that has been edited by a gentleman named Scott W. Alexander. And I'm going to read to you today from the introduction, a sort of invitation into spiritual practice. He starts like this. It was the Greek philosopher Plato who said, "The life which is unexamined is not worth living." Many people in our culture seem caught in a rut, meandering through their days, doing only what comes easily, simply reacting to unpredictable twists and turns, failing to structure their lives in any meaningful, maturing ways. This book offers an enriching alternative by suggesting how you can spiritually examine, shape, and care for your life and the life around you to achieve more wholeness, satisfaction, depth, and meaning. Any activity or attitude in which you can regularly and intentionally engage and which significantly deepens the quality of your relationship with the miracle of life, both within and beyond you, is what I call everyday spiritual practice. What makes an everyday spiritual practice different from a casual spiritual hobby, something worthwhile that one simply dabbles in? Intentionality, regularity, and depth. Whether it is sitting Zen, doing charitable giving, working with a spiritual director, or tending your relationship with loved ones, what shapes your efforts into an everyday spiritual practice is your commitment to making the activity a regular and significant part of your life. Now, people often associate the word practice with joyless discipline and unrewarding labor. As I read the diverse essays in this collection, I am struck by how consistently contributors describe the liberating, soul-satisfying pleasure their spiritual disciplines bring to their lives. Paradoxically, by choosing to embrace discipline and structure, which on the surface seems to restrict freedom and limit choice, you gain the freedom to become more fully and joyfully yourself. Everyday spiritual practice is not glum drudgery or puritanical labor, but rather part of joyful, creative, empowered living. And that's what we're talking about this month in the spirit of devotion. I'm going to read through today's affirmation, and I'll invite you to join me in a moment. I walk in the easy awareness of my inner being, infinite source. I practice the awareness of this presence and am guided by its wisdom and nourished by its love. My spiritual practice is effortless and fulfilling and maintains and sustains me with every breath. And so it is. Please stand and join me. With conviction, I walk in the easy awareness of my inner being, infinite source. I practice the awareness of this presence and am guided by its wisdom and nourished by its love. My spiritual practice is effortless and fulfilling and maintains and sustains me with every breath, and so it is. That's our own beloved Clayton Brainerd. And make sure you say hi to Joshua. He's playing the flute today. Isn't that awesome? And Becca Palm, of course, holding it down. All things start with a grateful heart. You know, if we cultivated nothing but a grateful heart, somebody famous said, the first prayer, the only prayer is, thank you. Yes? Now, I don't know about you, but sometimes I don't feel so grateful for some things. And yet, if I can devote myself to something greater than I am, perhaps that's where the ability to rest in gratitude lies is in my devotion to something greater than I am, because then I begin to see things a little differently, don't I? And we're starting a new theme this month. And our theme this month is in the spirit of devotion. Devotion? What? Isn't that what my mom used to make me do, my devotions? What? What is devotion? So let's take a look at devotion. The dictionary tells us that devotion is love, loyalty, enthusiasm for a person, activity, or cause. I'm going to say that again. Love, loyalty, enthusiasm for a person, an activity, or a cause. Faithfulness, fidelity, constancy. That's devotion. And the root Latin word, the prefix is de, which is from, and vovere, which I don't know what my Latin sounds like to a person who speaks Latin, but that's what it looks like to me. The meaning of it is to vow. To vow. We make a vow to something greater than we are, and then we choose to live from that place. The de of devotion is from. We live from the vow that we made to something greater than we are. You see, when we live from our small self, we're petty and little, aren't we? We're about what can I get? How can people make me happy? But when I live from something greater than I am, I realize that I am here to do something wonderful in the world. I am here to duplicate the nature of the infinite life that we call God and make the world a better place. And I become devoted to that idea. I become devoted. I become loyal to. I develop fidelity to. I am constant to that notion. And then I practice from that place. How devoted are you to your spiritual evolution, your spiritual growth? How constant are you? How faithful are you to that something greater that has given you life? And trust me, I know the world is kind of a busy, crazy place, and it's so easy to get distracted. It's so easy to think something over here is more important than God. It's so easy to think something over there has control over me. But the facts are, and the spiritual truth, the capital T truth is, there is only one life. That life is my life. And as I allow that life to flow through me and as me, my experience of life becomes something greater than I am. And I make a greater difference in this world because of my willingness to be devoted to this something greater than I am. So how do we evidence that we are devoted to something greater than we are? How do you evidence you're devoted to anything? You spend some time with it. How you spend your time kind of tells you what you're devoted to, doesn't it? Just saying. So we spend some time with it in spiritual practice. And to become good at anything takes more than a couple days of practice, doesn't it? You know, there are some things we can get good at pretty quickly. But true mastery of a skill requires dedicated daily practice. True mastery of our spiritual awareness of ourselves, of a practice that supports us in knowing ourselves more deeply, requires daily dedicated spiritual practice. So here's my question. How many people in this room, and you don't have to raise your hand, have a daily dedicated spiritual practice? And by dedicated, I don't mean, I pray in the car on my way to work. I'm not saying don't do that. That's good. But it's not dedicated. Right? What you're doing is praying in the car while you're doing something else. Right? And so what we're talking about is dedicated time that you set aside every day, no kidding, to commune with that something that is greater than you are. And this is the key to spiritual evolution and mastery. Just like practice is the key to any evolution and mastery. So our daily spiritual practice awakens us to the awareness of that which is always so. You know, God doesn't go away when we're not thinking about it. God doesn't go away just because we're not dedicated to it. God doesn't go away when we're not paying attention to it. The Spirit is always with us. And our daily spiritual practice just awakens us to that and allows us to know and to remember on a regular basis, oh, that which is always so has a doorway into me right now because I'm stopping and I'm paying attention to it. Because I am practicing faithfulness and constancy to something greater than I am. Because of my devotion, I am an inlet to the divine such that it can flow through me. Are you good? Ready to say, yeah, I'm about it every day? Not quite? All right, I'll keep talking. I got more time. So there are 5 spiritual practices, 2 that are really key and critical, I think, and then 3 more that are very important that we're going to talk about this month. And it worked out perfectly because there's 5 Sundays in March. God is so good. So today we are talking about the spiritual practice of prayer. Next week we'll talk about meditation. In the following 3 weeks we'll talk about giving, study, and service. Those are kind of 5 spiritual practices that if you spend time each day in 1 or 2 of those and dedicate yourself in some way each week to all 5 of those, I promise you that door to the truth of who you are will open and begin to express automatically as you release any attachment to old ways of being, to old fears, to old ideas. And it's a process, right? That's why it's called practice. We start, and we do it, and sometimes we stumble, and then we just pick it up again, and then we do it some more, right? That's what practice is. And that's how we evolve and grow. So prayer, meditation, giving, study, and service are the 5 spiritual practices that if you devote yourself to those, the divine can make itself known more fully as you. So let's talk today about prayer. Prayer. How many of you have a regular prayer practice? You can raise your hand this time if you want. You pray kind of on a regular basis. That's pretty exciting. What is prayer? Well, there's 2 kinds of prayer that I know about. I was raised with the kind of prayer where you get down on your knees and you fold your hands real tight and you beg God for what you want. Right? And it's about a want. Anybody else raised with that kind of prayer? I'm not saying it's wrong to get down on your knees and beg God for what you want. In fact, sometimes in drastic circumstances, that's appropriate. It's like, please God, please God, please God. Because it's the only way we can open our hearts. It's the only way, it's like we might be in some urgent kind of situation. And I don't know about you, but I'm human. And when I get in an urgent situation, sometimes I forget my training, right? And so I'm not saying don't do that. I am saying be conscious and don't do that most of the time. Because when I say, please God, please God, please God, please God, please, I'm affirming a lack in my life, aren't I? I'm affirming that something that I believe is going to give me peace or greater well-being is not there for me. And so that's not the kind of prayer we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about affirmative prayer, the kind of prayer that acknowledges that there is something greater than we are, that it already exists, that our good is already made manifest somewhere. We just haven't made ourselves available to it. And all I have to do is have a movement in consciousness. As Ernest Holmes says, he defines prayer as a movement of thought in a deliberate and directed way along a line of specific reasoning intended to produce a particular result. And so what we have is a movement of thought for me to I walk in love. I give and I receive love effortlessly. That's a movement of thought, isn't it? Directed along a line of specific reasoning. The specific reasoning, God is love. I am created in the image and likeness of God, so I must be love. That's a line of specific reasoning, right? And a movement in consciousness has taken place with this specific reasoning intended to produce a certain result. I went into this prayer feeling unloved, or like there's not enough love in my life, and so I want to produce a specific result called an experience of greater love. And so I changed my mind. Myrtle Fillmore, she said it this way. She said, prayer is to change our minds and hearts so God's omniscient good may fill our minds and hearts. Do you see how that's a movement in consciousness? Prayer is to change not just our mind, but our heart, which is the feeling element, right? Prayer is to change our minds and hearts so God's omniscient good may fill our minds and hearts and therefore manifest in our lives. Change your thinking, change your life. When we change our minds and hearts, and when we accelerate that change with the feeling and the conviction that it is already so, something new can manifest for us. And so at the same time that I've said, what is prayer? I've said, why pray? Haven't I? Is there any situation or condition in your life that you would like to have a different experience? There is for me. I can think of 4 or 5 things. And you know what? If you can't think of something for you, just read the newspaper. There's, like, Reverend Janet Garvey Stangvik used to say she read the newspaper every day and she called it the world's prayer request. Right? It's one big prayer request. Just look at the news. That'll give you something to pray about. Because we actually need a collective movement in consciousness, don't we? We need a collective movement in consciousness, a collective reconnecting with changing our minds and our hearts about conditions in the world so that we can experience some new conditions. So that's why pray. Change our own lives and make the world a better place. Are you willing to devote 5 minutes a day to transforming your life and to transforming the world? And you know, I have to say, sometimes in my life, I've felt pretty powerless around my prayer life. Really, is my one little prayer going to change the world? I don't know. It will change my little corner of the world. And I kind of have this feeling that if enough of us change our little corner of the world, we'll change the world. So do your part. Do your part. Instead of sitting around judging all the people who aren't doing their part, just do your part. Practice that movement in consciousness. Practice that new idea. Embody it in heart and mind and allow it to change your experience of the world. So how do we do this? How to pray? Well, there's as many ways to pray as there are people in this room. There are some really specific methods we teach. For today, I'm going to say this. And I'm not going to say that. For today, let me say this. There is a way that it appears from what we can see and what we experience, there does appear to be a creative process, a way that things get created, a way that energy takes form. And here's what that way seems to be. I have an idea, which is energy. How many ideas do you have a day? Sometimes I have all kind of ideas and none of them go anywhere. But sometimes I have an idea that I say yes to. And I bring something into form out of that idea. So energy becomes form, doesn't it? The energy of the thought, by the power of my individual yes, becomes form. I had an idea that we needed to do a new membership intensive class here. And I said, yeah, let's move forward with that one. And we created it, and we had it Friday and Saturday, and it was terrific. Love you guys. Thank you for coming. It was awesome. But you see, the only reason that took form was it was an idea in my head. And then I gave it juice by saying yes to it. And then I walked in happy activity in the world, making it so. That's how we create, right? And the fact is, we create the way we create because that's the way the universe creates. And we were talking about this in the membership class this weekend. If we go back to our creation myth, which is in the first chapter of Genesis, there's a creation myth that has informed so much of Western culture. And the cool thing about myths is they always have a truth at their center, don't they? And so in our creation myth that we kind of embrace a lot in the Western world and in Western spiritual teachings is what it says in the Bible about the mind of God, if you will. The mind of God moved upon the face of the deep, the substance. See, and if God is all there is, that substance is of that infinite presence, that infinite mind, that infinite wisdom. That substance is the body of God. And the consciousness, the mind of God, moved upon the face of the deep, and it said, let there be light. And there was Do you see how that's a model? There was a movement in consciousness and a declaration, let there be. And there was an outcome. And there was a tiny slice in there between the let there be and the manifestation of light. Something had to say yes. And that is the mechanism in the universe that always says yes. Let there be light. Okie doke. And there was light. And that's how we're told to pray. When the disciples said to Jesus, teach us how to pray, he didn't say, get down on your hands and knees and fold your hands and beg and plead. Did he? He says, thy will be done. He didn't say, oh, please, God, do your best. Do your best. Thy will be done. There was a declaration. Hallowed be thy name. A declaration. Thy will be done. A declaration. There was no begging and pleading. Give us this day our daily bread. Oh, please, God, I really don't want to go hungry. Help me be. Give us this day. A demand was placed on the substance of the universe for daily bread. And when we pray the Lord's Prayer, we are placing a demand upon the universe for our daily bread. Not asking, please put bread on the table. See how that prayer comes from a belief that I don't have enough bread, doesn't it? But we say, let there be. Let there be light. Let there be love. Let there be grace. Let there be power. Let there be abundance. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. And the universe says what? Yes. Okay. But how often do we say, you see, everything is a prayer, isn't it? When I'm talking about your daily dedicated spiritual practice, I'm talking about getting conscious. Because how often during a day do you say, let there be lack? Let there be conflict. That's what gossip is, isn't it? It's a little prayer that things will get worse. Did you hear what she said? I can't believe it. Did you see what she was wearing? What? And then what happened was, and I can't believe he did that. Do you see how? And all of that is a prayer. The universe says, yes, he did that, and it was really, really bad. And we create more conflict. But if instead we say, God bless us all. And I saw some behavior today that, maybe wasn't exactly what I might like to see, but we all got our stuff, and some days that's what we do. And I walk in love, and I place my demand upon the universe for more love, and I place my demand upon the universe for more compassion, and I place my demand upon the universe for a greater experience of the truth of who that person is. That person, too, walking in the love and in the light of God, perhaps a little confused sometimes, but that's okay, because who's not confused sometimes, and it's not my place to judge. And so I stand in the light, and I say, let there be love, let there be light, let there be joy, let there be peace. And let it begin, right here. Now, prayer, conscious prayer, is simply a spiritual tool for directing the creative process. so that we can experience that movement in consciousness and therefore manifest something different in our lives. Getting conscious, paying attention. We speak our affirmative word with conviction. I'm going to give you a couple examples. Here's an affirmative word with conviction. Anybody having any trouble at work or in your business? Something you'd like to experience a little differently? Here's a nice prayer for you. My business is directed by divine intelligence. The all-knowing mind knows what to do and how to do it. I do not hinder, but I let it operate in my affairs. God prospers and directs me and controls my life. My affairs are managed by love and directed by wisdom, and they cannot fail to prosper and expand. Now imagine saying that instead of, I hate my boss. Imagine saying that instead of, there's not enough customers. Imagine saying that instead of, my business is failing. Imagine anchoring your conscious awareness. My business is directed by divine intelligence. My business is God's business, and God cannot fail. I stand in the conviction. I place my demand upon the universe for the good that is mine to experience at work or in my business. Sound good? How about this one? Anybody afraid about anything? You got any fear? Anything you're worrying about? Here's a good one. Greater than fear is love. Love dissolves all fear, casts out all doubt, sets the captive free. Love, the river of life, flows through me and refreshes me with its eternal blessings. Love cannot be afraid. It is fearless and strong. It is mighty in its works. Love accomplishes all things through the inner light of faith. The faith that fills my being with the perfect presence. Love casts out all fear. There's a little prayer for you. If you're feeling fear about anything in your life. And so the way to go about this is to consider, you see, and I have this conversation with folks a lot. I'm not saying that you deny the condition, right? Sometimes there are things that are going on in our lives that don't feel very good, or that don't seem very godlike. Sometimes there are things going on in the world that seem overwhelming and frightening. And yet, am I going to buy into that story and allow that to direct my experience of life? Or am I going to affirm love dissolves all fear? And I'm going to clean up my little corner of the world here with love, because I am of the conviction that when enough of us clean up our little corner of the world, the movement in consciousness will happen such that there is a manifestation of love for everyone, of peace for everyone, of joy for everyone. So we don't deny the condition. We deny that the condition has any power over us. And you've heard me say this before. And it's kind of one of those things that I think we have to hear like a million times. We don't deny the condition. If I've got a broken leg, it would be stupid to get up and try and walk and say, there's no broken leg here. I am perfect health, vital and alive. Isn't it? That is like, that defines common sense. Is, I see myself walking in perfect health. And I'm so grateful for the medical care and technology that facilitates me toward that goal. I am so grateful for my body that knows how to mend itself. I am so grateful for the perfection and the wholeness that I innately am, and for its manifestation in my life as I started to say walk this path of healing, but I guess if you have a broken leg, as I sit in this path of healing, right? So we don't deny the fear. We declare something greater than the fear. Because God is bigger than your fear. God is bigger than your broken leg. God is bigger than any experience we might have down here in the human form. Reverend Michael Beckwith said, I got to get this exactly right. It was so good. He said, you gotta quit telling God about your big problems and tell your problems about your big God. See, what we do with affirmative prayer is we tell our problems about our big God. The living one, the infinite substance, the divinity that can create a universe and the stars and the heavens, knows how to heal your leg. Knows how to move you through this tough experience you're having at work. Knows how to move you through a tough relationship or a difficult financial time. The infinite mind and heart of God knows what to do if we will get our bloated nothingness out of the way, as Emerson says, and let it do it. And how we get our bloated nothingness out of the way is we lift ourselves out of the problem and into the consciousness of perfection and wholeness, health, wellness, joy, and peace. Hallelujah. So we take a look at we take a look at what's happening that is not working for us, right? And do it frankly. What's happening that's not working for me? Oh, that's interesting information. Now that I know clearly what's happening in my life that isn't working for me, I can begin to consider what it is I want to experience instead. Now that I've stopped denying it, now that I've stopped denying I can't pay my bills, don't have enough money to pay my bills, that's a condition someone might be experiencing that doesn't feel life affirming, right? But what we say is, right now I can't pay my bills. That's the condition in the human realm that's going on. What do I want to experience in the human realm? Well, I want to experience a sense of financial ease, that I pay my bills on time, that there's an easy flow of money in my life, that I am abundantly supported by the universe. And we begin to align with those ideas and move our consciousness from I can't pay my bills to every bill is paid easily and effortlessly. The divine is flowing in my financial life. And you know what begins to happen is opportunities start to show up. I got a million stories. Because when I say this thing about can't pay my bills, I walked that path for like 10 years. Can't pay my bills, can't pay my bills, can't pay my bills. God just doesn't get it. I can't pay my bills. And if I could stand in the conviction of my bounty with as much clarity as I stood in the conviction of I don't have enough, then suddenly things started to evolve for me. But it required a movement in consciousness. See, we try and fix it down here in the world first. It doesn't fix down here in the world first because consciousness is cause. We have to work in the realm of consciousness. Don't let the appearance fool us, but move forward in conviction and devotion to the greater idea, and all else is added unto us. And what a powerful thing that is. What powerful creatures we are to create our experience of life. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty clear that I created that experience of lack just as much as I created the experience of abundance. And Emma Curtis Hopkins told us, that which makes us sick heals us. The same conviction with which you knew your lack, with the same tool of conviction, you can know your bounty. It is the conviction that makes us sick or heals us. So we have the experience. We look at the experience. We acknowledge the experience. What is this experience here to teach me? Oh, it's here to teach me to think differently. It's here to teach me to rely more on the infinite mind and heart of God. It's here to teach me that the universe is really in a conspiracy for my good. It's here to teach me all of this and more. And am I available to the lesson? And am I willing to stand in the conviction that God is my source? That peace and abundance and joy are my reality. That's how you pray. Got it? Yeah. What's happening? What do I want to have happen? How does it feel? Because remember, a thought plus a feeling equals a result. The feeling is what drives the conviction, isn't it? A thought plus a feeling equals a result. What do I want to experience? How does it feel? And then we simply start to affirm that. And bless that. Remember, like those ones I read to you. And if you don't quite have the language, write it down, play with it. If you still don't quite have the language, write it down, play with it some more. If you still don't have the language, try this prayer. Prayer comes easily to me. The words flow without effort. What was today's affirmation? My spiritual practice is effortless and fulfilling. I love it when people say, oh, I can't pray. Really? That's a prayer. Of course you can pray. If you know you can pray, I can't meditate. Yes, you can. Are you willing to stand in the conviction that meditation is effortless and easy for you? That's all we're called to. And so let's turn within and see if we can't do this process a little bit right here and right now. And so what I invite you to do right now is turn your attention to your breath, to feel your breath as it moves in and out of your body. And to recognize that the infinite heart of God is beating in you. To recognize that the breath of God is breathing you. To recognize that there is something greater than you are making itself known as you, right here and right now. And that this something, the thing itself, the infinite source, is worthy of your devotion, is worthy of your loyalty, your enthusiasm. It is worthy of your faithfulness and your constancy. And I just invite you to take a moment to consider your current spiritual practice, to cast about in your life. How well do I pray? How often do I pray? What is the current state of my spiritual practice? And just allow whatever thoughts or feelings about spiritual practice come up for you. They simply bubble up and you notice. And for some of you, these images might bring up positive feelings, and for some of you, you might think, I don't feel so good about that. Whatever it may be, you simply notice it and you let it come. And out of this imaging, begin to allow yourself to think about, what is it I want to experience in my devotion to something greater than I am? How do I want my spiritual practice to begin to manifest in my life? What would constancy and devotion and faithfulness look like if I were to embrace a deep, rich spiritual practice? And just allow the images begin to flow. See yourself engaged with that infinite something in a meaningful way. See yourself engaged in prayer, meditation, giving, study, service, and begin to see how that feels to you. Allow the feelings of that devotion, that constancy to flow in your body right here and right now. And now place your demand upon the universe. Spiritual practice is easy for me. I love to pray. I open my heart to a daily movement in consciousness. I allow Spirit to evolve me. I say yes to the infinite good making itself known as my life. Whatever the words are that come for you, embrace them, and see yourself walking in this happy condition, moving forward in a committed, vibrant, alive devotion to the infinite. And I do give thanks. I give thanks for the opening of hearts and minds that have taken place here today. I give thanks for the movement in consciousness. I give thanks for the change in heart and mind such that God's good can move as us. And knowing that the movement in consciousness has taken place, I know it must be done. Let there be light, and there was light. And so I release it and I let it go, confident that we move forth with conviction and boldness. And so it is.